Hello and welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the Sideshed podcast. My name is Matt Jones and we are coming up now to episode 46. But before we get started, I just wanted to talk quickly about a program that we have got coming up in August. It's called Learn and Ski, and we are taking a group of tradespeople or whoever actually wants to come across to New Zealand, where we are going to be running a business workshop in the afternoon and we'll be skiing in the morning. The idea behind this is because we want to give you guys a reason and a way that you can justify getting away, spending a bit of time investing in yourself and also in the business. I know myself as a business owner, that's something that I always wanted to do, was be able to get away, go on holiday, go skiing, go surfing, whatever it is. But then it was hard for me to justify taking that time or, investing that money in something that wasn't necessarily to do with my business. So with that in mind, I've launched this program. This is going to be the first one. It's going to be in New Zealand. We're going to be skiing in Wanaka, and then we're going to be running workshops in the evening in the afternoon, and then in the evening, who knows what's going to happen. But we're going to be doing that over the course of 3 days. And if you want to come along, if that sounds like something you want to do, if you like to ski or snowboard, and you also want to invest in your business, then this is going to be the perfect opportunity. You can head across to thesideshed.com/events, and you will be able to follow the prompts there. So tickets are filling up. You'll need to get in relatively quickly. We can't take too many, obviously, because of the number restrictions. But look, it's all pretty much prepackaged, ready to go. Yeah, anyway, head across to that link and you can see more information. Anyway, in today's podcast, we are talking with Al Levi, and Al Levi came recommended to us from Ellen Raw back in episode, 42. And Al runs a company called Appleseed Business, and this is a fantastic podcast as he now works sort of in a consulting role with trade-based organisations. However, he came from a plumbing background himself, and he's certainly got some runs on the board in that regard. Very knowledgeable man, very, very good communicator, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this podcast. So if you do enjoy it, you know the deal. Leave us some comments in the show notes, or even better, leave it in iTunes, Stitcher, and or SoundCloud. But anyway, that's all for me now. We're going to dive right into this episode, so enjoy.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Sideshed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello and welcome back to Toolbox Talks. And in today's episode, we are talking with Al Levi out of the United States of America. And Al runs Appleseed Business, and he has a background in the trenches. So Al actually came recommended to us via Ellen Raw, who was on the show a few episodes ago. And Ellen was a fantastic guest and an excellent communicator on the podcast there. And when I asked her, who do you recommend that I get on the show next, or who would you like to see on the show next? Al was actually the first person that came to mind. So Al, thank you very much for joining us on the show.
It's my pleasure. It's very hard to follow on the heels of Ellen Rohr, but I'm a giant fan and also a good friend, and we collaborate a lot together, myself and Ellen. So
yep,
it's my honor and my privilege, and I'm going to give it my best swing because I've got a lot to share. And yes, guys, I know what it's like to turn the wrenches, and I know how to make things better. So Matt and I are going to share with you today.
One of our big messages, Al, that we like to, I suppose, promote on a global scale through the podcast is, where you begin is not always where you end up. And I know there's a bit of a global movement going on where, kids especially are not necessarily interested in getting into trades. And one of the reasons is because they fear the outcome. They don't want to be a, 60, 70-year-old, guy digging holes. However, one of the messages we like to dispel is that that's not often the case. Where you begin is not always where you end up. And by serving an apprenticeship and doing a trade, you can open so many amazing doors, and it can let you access so many different, verticals. And I suppose you're a testament to that, as am myself.
Well, in my case, I came out of a family business, so I was raised on the silver spoon that was covered with mud and oil. My dad was a great guy, and my dad and my two older brothers and I were, primarily in the business. And to my dad's great credit, he raised us on the philosophy that you should never ask anybody to do anything that you have not done yourself. And I will not lie, when I was young, I did not enjoy sticking my head in the toilet,
No.
but I did understand later on the wisdom of that, which is, in a freezing cold day, if I'm running on a heating job and I'm not going on the roof, Matt, you don't have to go. But if I am, you better be coming with me.
Yeah.
And I really learned a lot of great skills. I learned how to communicate really well. I learned how to problem solve. And I think those skills translate to everything and anything you do from here on out. Learning how to talk to people, especially people who are upset, frustrated. If you've been to a call where you had to go back 2 or 3 times, you know what I mean about frustrated people. They're not happy. If you were them, neither would you. So having systems and processes that help you get to better conclusions faster, and that's really what I'm about, is being systematic.
Well,
I was really good at sales, Matt. It's not like, give me the toolbox. I was great at sales. I had earned my way up. I was selling, but the problem was my guys were blowing up the jobs behind me. So I had to learn how to create operations manuals that detailed our policies and procedures so they were repeatable, because we had 20 guys and 20 guys could do the work any way they felt like. And one day we asked about tune-ups, how do you do tune-ups? And we got 25 answers from the 20 guys, because just depended on how they woke up that day about how they felt about the work. And so that really is what sabotages people from the ability to grow, in my opinion. But what you're speaking to is, I personally am not a fan of this. People are not attracted to the trade, because I did it at my own business. I got so good at it, I replaced myself with people I had trained from scratch. The difference was I built willing people and provided the skills, rather than constantly trying to look for lightning in a bottle. And what lightning in a bottle is the guy who supposedly has all the skills, that they can talk to customers, they can sell, make good recommendations, they know how to do their work. Well, here's the question, Matt. If they're so darn good, why are they working for you instead of going down the road and having their own truck and finding out all the joys that are to be in business? So it's not a path. Now, if you don't have a career path, you will lose those guys.
Yeah.
And for my company, we created field supervisors. We created sales positions. We actually hubbed and spoke, because our service area in Long Island, New York, which is outside of JFK Airport, is long. They named it correctly, Long Island. It's 115 miles tip to tip in New York City traffic. So you can imagine we had spokes, in other words, shops in multiple locations. And you better have rock solid systems if you ever hope to expand and be able to do that. That's what we were able to accomplish. Once we created and documented our systems, once we trained people on it, we had working training centers so people could learn the trade our way in a safe environment before they went out and worked at customers' houses and had to experiment.
Yeah, wow.
But I was always looking for, young, willing people. And I will tell you, to this day, with the clients that I work with, that is one of the things I have to battle. They hear everybody, in chat rooms and whatnot, or even their own experiences, get soured on it. They're out there. Don't tell me about the age. Don't tell me about the rest of it. I can share a quick story if you have time.
Yeah.
Speaks to this. Yeah, there was a guy who was just ahead of me. My dad was very much about hiring veterans. So the fellow had come out of serving his time, and he came to the company. So he was a couple of years older than me, and he was helping me train these new guys. And he goes, "These new guys, they don't want to learn anything. They don't want to work hard. They're watching their time. They want to go home." And I let them just vent. And then I said, "You know what, Tommy? I was here when they were saying the same thing about you."
Yeah.
So it's been going on forever. It's kind of like a fishing story. The further you are from the time you went fishing, the bigger the fish grows.
Right.
I think some of that is we're not fair. We're not fair about that. But how much are you firing up young people that want to come work for you?
Yeah.
They want a job. They want a job. They want a career, though. They don't want just to be doing time. So if you don't have systems that make them more effective, because you know what, it's a tough life if you can't get good at what you do. You know what I mean? If you're just going to be mediocre. So it's incumbent upon you, the owners of your company, to make the people that are there with you great. And that will take systems, and that will take time and dedication and learning about them as people. Because if they wanted to work for, some nameless, faceless thing, they'd go work for a utility company. Why would they be working for you, a private owner? The joy is to belong to a family. And that's what I'm thinking is, I don't care if you're related or not. But businesses, good businesses, work like a family. The only question is it a dysfunctional family or a loving and supporting family? Because if it is, you're going to be the employer of choice.
Look, I think that's it's really interesting. Maybe we can come back in a future podcast, or maybe even we could even conduct some sort of series and talk maybe a little bit about the process behind establishing a career path, or how you can best implement a strategy like that into a business. Because I imagine, well, I know for sure. I mean, I've worked in organisations where that wasn't apparent, and as a result, I left. It was simple as that. I just didn't want to be there. There was I just saw it as a dead end job.
Yes, and so Matt, you're dead on right. Because if it's a dead, I don't care how good you are. I don't care how talented you are. If you're any good, you see the dead end. Is that all there is? You know, by the time I was 40, I was running the call and I was behind a truck in my wheels, running off to go do another no heat call or a toilet repair call. And I said to myself, "Oh, lucky day for me! I get to do this again."
Yeah.
You know, that's. And I said, if I wasn't the owner's kid, I'd be thinking about going to get a truck, go down the road. How hard could this be? And that's when they find out 9 out of 10 new businesses fail.
Yeah.
Because they're not business people going out there. They're just contractors or they're technicians. And if that's all it took, there'd be a lot more successful people.
That's right.
I'm here to say it takes more than just being able to turn the wrench.
Yeah. Well, look, maybe we will revisit that. We might discuss it when we're off air. But I suppose for now, what I'd really like to dive into a little bit more, if it's okay with you, Al, is maybe a little bit about your story. And then just maybe we might talk a little bit about your transition into where you are now and what you're currently doing within your current business. Is that okay?
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, cool.
So after I had enough bumps in,
sorry?
I had enough bumps in my head, that's when I moved on. I was going to say, yes, I earned a lot of lumps in my head from banging up against pipe. So there's a lot of knowledge happening around there.
Yeah, well, you and me both, actually, because I guess we're both former plumbers, so we've got that in common. That's good.
Yes. Yeah.
So, Al, tell me, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
It was funny. I was riding with one of my dad's employees. He was like the third employee ever of the company. My company, by the way, goes back to 1936. My grandfather started out of a gas station. My dad was second generation, and I'm third generation. And today, I'm pleased to say my nephew, his fourth generation, is in the business with my two older brothers who are still there.
Wow.
People always ask, "You still have the company?" I go, "Yeah, you bet they do." And now we do plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical, home automation. So they're always doing something new and fun because they've mastered how to write manuals, how to do training. So you can take on different trades.
Yep.
And they're doing great at it. So that was that's kind of how we transitioned our family.
What is the company, actually? Now you mention it.
The name of the company is actually two. There's OSI, which stands for Oil Services, Inc., which is a fuel oil company. Back in the Northeast, instead of using gas, heat, or electric, there's still some fuel oil out there, so that's part of it. But the other one is Comfort Specialist, which is the plumbing, gas heating, air conditioning, electrical company.
Okay. No worries.
And they're located in Long Island.
Long Island.
Which is a part of, yeah.
Right on. Okay, so it was. I mean, I suppose when you were growing up with all that, with plumbers around you, was that kind of a natural segue for you? Was it okay? I'm going to be a plumber.
No, not at all. It was in a truck. I was all of about 10 to 12 years old, and my dad had me out being a helper with one of his guys, and the guy was looking at me, and I said I may have 10 or 12, and looks over at me and goes, "Hey, kid, what are you going to be when you grow up?" And I don't know why, Matt. I said electrician. And he looks at me and goes, "This is New York City. There's unions. You can't be an electrician because your dad's not an electrician." So I took a second and I go, "Okay, I'll be an electrical engineer." I don't even know if I knew what an electrical engineer was, but that's what I spit out at that time.
Right.
And the joke of it is I went off to become a mechanical engineer and then never worked a day in life as a mechanical engineer because I got my toolbox and off I went. So there was a lesson here that I have shared 1,000 times. And the lesson was, he said to me, it doesn't matter what you want to be, but if you want to have a career instead of a job, you have to have passed these 3 tests. He said, the first test is you have to do what you love. He says, because you're going to do it at least 8 hours. And that's not even true. We all work longer than 8 hours. He said, and when you get home, you're going to fight with the wife, you're going to kick the dog, and you're not going to sleep all night because you got to go back to work tomorrow. So as a 10-year-old, I'm thinking, that's interesting. So I said, what's the second thing? He says, you have to be able to pick something you can get good at. If you're going to spend your whole life being mediocre and never having the level of success of being able to accomplish and do the job right, there's always going to be that lack. So now I was really like hooked And I said, okay, so what's the third test? He goes, He said, you have to do a job that can afford the lifestyle you want to live. I said, face it, we'd all like to be movie stars. We'd like to be on TV, radio. We'd like to, be able to do those things. How many of us want to star for 20 years to make that happen? So if you can find a job that you love, if you can find a job that you can get good at, and then you can find a job that helps you afford the lifestyle, you have now found a career, not a job. And that lesson has stuck with me all these years.
Yeah,
and
wow.
I share it all the time.
That's pretty powerful, isn't it? I mean, I think this is one of the problems as well in, I suppose people entering in trades. And it's one of the reasons why I like interviewing people like yourselves, because I think maybe when a lot of people think of, going into an apprenticeship, they don't really necessarily, they don't resonate with the fact that, it can provide a lifestyle that you dream of and it can do all of these things. I think most people sort of have the blinkers on when they look at, what a trade is and, the sort of person that does one.
I think that's so true, and blessed in this second career to be working with some great contractors through the years who have created enormous wealth for themselves, who have created great career opportunities for the people that work at their company, and they get historically great comments and remarks, both online and every other way possible, from their customers, because they know no one else can serve them as well as they do. This idea of the cut-cracked plumber that's lived for so long is something we just have to drive a stake through its heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's not true. It's not true. And it's those myths that we have to break. So I know plenty of contractors, including myself. I've lived a great lifestyle from what we did. Now it's hard work, but everything is hard work.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody could do it, was kind of what my dad said. But but once you understand that there's more than turning the wrenches and you are committed to building a successful, repeatable, well-run company, these things are out there. It's other people's myth, not yours. And to make a career for guys, so that's what I love working with Ellen in our franchises. The guys are all young. They see the future. They have early success. And when you get a taste of success, it's like your first bite of honey. You're just going to want more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So don't set them up for failure, these young guys. Give them a chance to work their way up and give them each little success. In America, there's a thing called Boy Scouts, and you get your merit badge for doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's brilliant. And I'm sure they have something similar in Australia. But a lot of times we do something wrong and we get kicked in the teeth. For old guys like myself, the way we learn pipe sizes, we worked with a guy and we hand up a pipe and we hand him the wrong one. It would come flying down at our head as fast as we hand. I will tell you, can't do that anymore. If anybody's listening, you can't do that anymore. But it's amazing how fast you will learn your pipe sizes.
Yeah, I think we've all been down that road.
Yes.
How funny.
So Appleseed, what I do today is teaching about the 7 power contractors, is those learning how to plan, which is, every day waking up to put out the same fire you thought you put out yesterday is a pretty miserable experience.
Yeah.
I understand you have to be sometimes in firefighting, but if you're never in fire prevention, you got to learn how to plan. So that's what planning power is about. Operating power is creating policies and procedures in writing that are objective. They're not meant to be a law book. They cannot cover 100% of what it takes to run your company. But if you could cover 80% of what you do, now it took me a year to get the outline for everything in my company of what we did. And I sat with people and then I hired a really good writer, Dan, to help me put this together. And we worked together, the CSR, customer service rep, the dispatcher, the tech. And now if you're a small company, you are all of those people. And one of the best things you can do is create an organizational chart. Now, it will make you sick to your stomach because you're going to see your name in all these boxes. But here's the truth of it, Matt. Your name is in all those boxes today.
Mm-hmm.
And you're never getting out of it until you know what the boxes it takes to run your company. Not the fancy titles like vice president, but the boxes it takes to run your company. And then you can understand what goes on in those boxes, because that's where the freedom comes, to allow other people to take those boxes from you. And that's an organization people want to belong to.
So we've touched a little bit on organizational charts in the past, perhaps not in detail, but I'm thinking that maybe you and I can maybe dive a little bit deeper into that in an upcoming series or something. However, is it similar to I mean, the 7 tiers of management that you would see the likes of, L. Ron Hubbard, that kind of structure. Is that kind of what your 7-power contractor?
No. No. Sorry.
Quick to address that.
Yes, I think I've covered it.
Yeah.
The organizational chart that I believe in is as flat can be.
Okay.
If I have to go 7 people to see the Wizard of Oz, that's a problem.
Right.
The guy at the top gets isolated, doesn't know what's going on. I don't care how big your company is. There was a company I worked with. They had grown to 85 million. That's a pretty good sized company. Bad news is they had shrunk to 35 million in sales, and they still had all these vice presidents. The guy sent me his organizational chart, Matt. It was pages. And I just said to him, I said, if you're going to come here and work with all these vice presidents and not you, this isn't going to work. And so when I walked in, he told me, he says, I had fired those guys. And guess what I found out? I says, I'll tell you exactly what you found out. They were hiding stuff from you all along because they're only interested in protecting their own job.
Mm.
He goes, that's exactly right. I said, yeah. I said, and I don't blame them. I blame you. Mm-hmm. So an organizational chart is flat. In most contracting companies, there's a sales manager, service manager, warehouse manager, a financial person, which is where Ellen's wing comes in, is running the office. There's a basically flat organizational chart, and the managers get to speak to the top of the guy. He's got to be connected into that. No matter how big you go, that's the best kind of organizational chart that I can describe.
So with Appleseed Business, the business that you currently work in, just for the listeners out there, you no longer work hands-on in the plumbing business, although you are. Do you work with them at all, or?
No. I am as I tell my wife, I'm available at home for emergency repairs only.
Right.
I have earned enough money to hire somebody else to do the hard work. I don't do physical work. So, as my brothers will tell you, since I left the company in 2002, I haven't really turned a wrench, thankfully.
Yeah.
I don't do what I work with. I actually work with companies in trades I never did. My first hire was a guy who was an electrician who had read my manuals, learned about what I did, read where I wrote in Plumbing Mechanical magazine, which is a very big magazine here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually said, I need you to come help. And I go, well, I'm not an electrical. He says, I've read everything you do. I said, I need you to write about 30 pages on electrical. And you know what? That's about exactly what we needed to do, because everything else I did, answering the phones, dispatch, AR, accounts receivable, AP, accounts payable, all of those other things that were detailed was easy to modify to fit him.
Yeah. And
I worked with a roofing contractor. I even worked with a photography company.
Mm-hmm.
So when guys always love to tell you, oh, my business is different. My dad used to hold up his finger and his forethumb, and it would be like a millimeter between the two. He says, yeah, everybody's business is different. He says it isn't. And this is where the 7 power concepts come in: planning, operations, staffing, sales coaching, financial marketing.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to get hold of those 7 things. Now, you're not necessarily, and I've worked with who I think are some of the best contractors ever in the States. Not everyone is 10 out of 10, Matt, but you can't be a 0. So
right.
You could be great at planning and operations, staffing, but if you don't know your financial, you're going to go broke. You don't charge enough, like Ellen talks about. You're going to go broke. If the phone never rings, which is what you teach in marketing and stuff, if you're not having more calls than you can humanly do in a day, there's a problem.
Yeah. So was there, when you started Appleseed Business, was there a pivotal moment for you to, make that transition, or was it just, did it all just come about when you'd pretty much replaced yourself and you didn't have anything to do?
Well, I think it's funny for a couple of reasons, because I am not an accidental person, and Ellen will tell you that we are X's on personality because we are very different. But one thing is there are not too many unplanned things for me.
Yeah.
I actually gave my brothers and my dad 3 years notice that I was leaving. I'm not sure if you heard that. 3 years notice.
Wow.
Compared to my employees that used to give us 2 weeks if we were lucky, a week. Sometimes they left the keys on the dashboard, and sometimes we used to go find the truck.
Yeah.
So this was quite a contrast. And in those 3 years, here's what I did: was I went out, acquired other companies, put other people in place, got some good other staff, got them trained up on our systems, and it only cemented my belief that indeed the systems that I had, this planning systems and operations and how to build staff and all these other things, would work at other companies.
Yeah.
So by the time I went out the door, my mission was clear, was to prove to contractors that you can run your contracting business with less stress and more success. And that's what I've been off to do ever since.
Good work. Good on you. So what do you spend your time doing day to day? What's your role?
Well, today, my role is kind of transition, which is I never took on more than 10 contractors because I had intensive work with companies. I have worked with companies as small as the owner's wife, and one technician. And I've worked with companies that are 200 200 company, 200 people company, 85 million, 100 million companies. So I've worked the spectrum. Sometimes I come into companies that have grown wildly and they're out of control and they need the system to get a foundation under their shaky building. Mm-hmm. Or guys have reached the wall where they can't, they just can't grow. They're stuck. They don't have a clone. They don't have a way to, make this thing work. And they know without systems, they're never going to get to the second level. So that's really what I've been doing through the years. I've also been doing webinars and seminars, speaking engagements, a lot of those alone, some of those with Ellen. And today, when I wrote, finally I realized that I am ready to work with people that can't afford to bring me in one-to-one, Matt. And that's why I created the 7 Power Contractor ebook and paperback. And I will be recreating the webinars and seminars that are going to be following that up as well.
Yeah.
So that I could reach more people. That's really been my goal in this next phase of my career, as well as the franchise that Ellen and I are involved with, which is cranes, because we love crane work. That's actually one of my contractors.
Yeah, right.
The crane guy. Going back to 2005. He and his brother were in there. And, it's a funny story. I don't know if you have time for it, though.
It's a relatively new endeavor, is it? I think Ellen mentioned
Yeah. It's about 2 to 3 years old. And, so we were very selective about what we wanted to do. But the two brothers, the one brother is very much, got a great vision. And in 2005, the guys are dressed like a mess. Nothing's organized. They can't hold meetings. It's everything that a disaster, which is why they called me in. And the brother says to me, this first meeting, he goes, I'd like to license and franchise this. And everything I could do, Matt, except not laugh in his face. But I'm thinking, franchise this? It's like, what? So I said, I'll tell you what, why don't we just see if we can have a meeting held right and get these guys dressed right, and then we'll go from there. And the end of the story is they got so good that we did, when Ellen and I said we want to do franchise, I said, I know exactly the guys. Yeah. So when I spoke to him, I called him up, and he goes, I've been waiting for 3 years for this phone call. It's a good story. It's a great story, actually. I'm so proud of what they've been able to do, and pretty cool stuff.
I dare say the story's not over.
No. It's just getting fun.
Just getting started, eh? That's awesome.
Yep.
So what does our Levi do when he's not working?
Well, I'm allowed to admit it now. I didn't admit it when I used to go back to New York City when I would come back. And when I tell you what it is, you got to understand. I do yoga and I do Tai Chi when I'm out on the road, and I play golf. Yep. And coming from a work environment and coming from New York City in the old days, you could never admit that you were doing yoga,
right?
and breathing and meditating and all these other kinds of things. It was like, somebody would have thought that I had been hijacked by aliens or something. But so I've learned how to mellow out in my time out here in Scottsdale when I'm not on the road.
Yeah, I started yoga a couple of years ago, and it's been life-changing for me. It's moved me into all sorts of different interesting forms of fitness now these days. I've actually even recently started doing gymnastic strength training, so taking it back to sort of foundational gymnastic roots. It's been really interesting. So yeah, that all stemmed from.
That is exciting.
That all stemmed from yoga. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. I get excited, so I apologize for cutting you off, but I think that's such a connection to the next level.
It is. We're actually, and it's an important element as well. I mean, I'm actually conducting a podcast, or possibly a series of podcasts coming up with my gymnastic strength coaching trainers, and we're going to be talking about how important it is to stay mobile and stay like when you're a tradesman or when you're out there on the tools. When I came from that background, there's a bit of a mentality where If you're going to go to the gym at all, you go to the gym to lift weights. And of course, you never stretch. And, it's one of those things where the guys bend down to pick up their toolbox and they put their back out because they just don't have that basic mobility that we're all born with, but we just lose over the years. So, looking forward to doing that series, actually.
Well, I'll tell you, Matt, what brings to the point is that when I do a sales seminar with guys and techs, and we talk about charging the right price, and I look out at it and I just say, by a show of hands, who's over 40? And hands go up. And I just ask the same question that I know. I said, so how many of you have a back that feels the way it did when you were 20 and 30? And the hands go down.
Yeah.
How many of you have, knees? We sacrifice our body for our trade. Now it's getting better. We have knee pads and eyeglasses. We have a lot more safety stuff. If we're not stupid, and I was stupid because I didn't listen to the older guys to use that stuff, we don't have to hurt ourselves the way we did years ago. But that said, if you don't invest in your body and do some of these exercises, and for me, I'll tell you, it was great. The flexibility was great. But you know what was not flexible? My mind. Mm-hmm. I was a ball of stress. And these guys get to be a ball of stress the same way. And what happened to me in yoga class was the first class I stumbled in, I could not sit on the floor because my back was that far gone. Mm-hmm. So my instructor said, you know what I want you to do? Just lay on the floor and breathe for an hour. It was the longest hour in my life, Matt, and the most important hour of my life. Because before then, I never realized I was breathing in my chest because I was so tensed up. I didn't know how to breathe with my body, something we know as children. And you, as contractors out there, just think about what I'm saying here for a second. What Matt and I are sharing is the most basic thing. One of the things that helps you get rid of your stress is just learning how to breathe right. And that's what yoga taught me. Now, my yoga teacher has a great line, Matt, which is the knots in your body come from the knots in your head. All the knots we say to ourselves.
Yeah.
Not ever going to make money with this. Not ever going to find people that'll help me. Should I go on?
Yeah, mate. I'm sure we could go on for. We could probably create a 10-part series on the benefits of yoga. We won't. We'll move on.
No, but yoga for contract. I don't care what you do. I don't even care if you. Part of what happened for me is I was like everybody else. I'm assuming it's the same in Australia. You have no time, so what do? You eat in your car or your truck while you're working, right? Mm-hmm. And your dashboard dying, and you never really eat, and you never really get a break. So by the end of the day, you're like a fuzzy sweater that keeps picking up lint. Mm-hmm. So if you can do nothing more than just go someplace, hang out for 15 minutes, and just disconnect your phone, the world will not fall apart.
Yeah. And
take that 15-minute mental break. I promise you, the rest of your day will go better.
Yeah. Is there one with the companies that you contract to? Is there a common problem that you see with them any more than another? Like, is there one real thing that sticks out to you, sort of across the board?
Yes, I would say I came back from my first year of consulting, and my brothers were like, super curious. So, what'd you learn? I said, well, here's what I learned. We are not the smartest guys out there. There are people that are smarter than us. Mm-hmm. I said, but here's what I did learn. When the three of us used to fight and argue and whatever, but we would come to a decision and we would set a date and we would get something done. No matter what it takes, it was going to get done. What I see are people have a meeting, they talk about something, it's a good idea, we should get around to it, let's have another meeting, let's talk about it. Is it on the schedule? Whatever happened to that thing we were going to do? And they procrastinate to death because they're so afraid to make a mistake. Mm-hmm. What makes us great as technicians, we're perfectionists. What kills us as business people is we are seeking perfection, and there is no perfection. Mm-hmm. So procrastination steals your power. I'm not saying just knee-jerk everything, but the car that you're building in your garage, Matt, that's going to be perfect, will lose to my car that's already on the highway making hay. You know what I mean?
It's so funny that you said that. I literally this morning just finished the last chapter of an ebook that I'm writing for the website, and the last chapter is Ready, Fire, Aim, and basically the the story behind Ready, Fire, Aim is, you should always try and get things out there. And then once it's live, you can steer it. So we get a lot of people come to us, saying, we don't want to launch the website yet because, it's not ready. The content's not perfect. And I always say to them, the content's never going to be perfect. You need to get it out there, get it live, see what's working, and then you can test and improve it. And it's pretty much exactly what you've just said.
Yeah. And I, even for myself, and the hardest thing is sometimes, Matt, is for us to listen to ourselves. But on my own website and getting the book out and the rest of the stuff, you can hide those buttons. They don't have to be live to everybody. And you'll fix it as it goes. But if you're ever going to wait, it'll never happen. It's not going to happen.
I mean, look, the reality is you can't steer a parked car. You've got to get it moving. And then once it's moving, you can direct it.
I love that. Steer a parked car. I love it.
You can use that if you want. There you go.
I'm going to give you credit, though, Matt. I will tell you that. Credit where credit's due.
So what's the best bit of advice you've ever been given?
There's a series my dad was my biggest mentor, and he gave me so much great advice. I was sharing with somebody the other day. When I first started this business, I left, and I wasn't going to leave my brothers high and dry. And so the 3 years was dedicated to making sure that I had the right people in, the systems were ready, and the rest of it. And so when I went off to start this company in January 2002, I had to get some things down and get my stuff ready and make some customization. And I was writing checks and, for computers and all the stuff it takes to be in business. And I wasn't broke, but, money flowing out makes you feel like you're broke, whether you have money in the bank or not. And I remember what my dad told me years and years ago when I was young and I came into the business, and we were in the heating business only. We had a mild winter that year. And I said to my dad, oh, it's too bad. We had a bad winter this year. I guess the trucks can't buy new trucks and we're going to have to postpone the replacement. And my dad is a very nice guy, very quiet. He just kind of chuckles and he goes, Al, your trucks don't care what kind of winter you had. All they know is they have to be replaced or they have to be, repaired. He says, that's why you don't spend all your money in your good years and you save stuff. He says, but here's the bigger thing for you to know. Act like you're going to be in business for a while. Business decisions get easier. And I took that advice for myself on this business. I was investing in myself and what I was doing. And that's what's paid dividends for all these years in my second career. That advice right there.
Yeah.
And that's what I would share with the people that are there. And now that whether that investing in yourself doesn't always mean money, it's time, it's energy. The three biggest things that you have in this world is time, energy, and money. And this one that's not scarce is the way you think it is money. It's time and energy. In your wallet, you only have so much emotional capital to spend today, Matt. When you woke up, and all of us on this call that woke up, in our wallet, we only had so many emotional dollars to spend today. So years ago, I used to go chasing people around to figure out who left the lights on, who didn't put the papers around. And I said to myself one day, this is insane. Look at the emotional energy I am wasting here. And it really calmed me down because I was a pretty crazy New Yorker.
Before you started doing yoga?
Before I started doing yoga. Now I'm just slightly crazy.
Oh, that's excellent. So do you have do you have a typical routine? I mean, like a lot of the business owners that I speak to, people like yourselves that have achieved a large level of success, they do tend to have, their routine that they try and stick to, or they have a habit that they try and stick to. Do you have anything that sort of falls into that category for you?
Yeah, yes, I do. I believe in routine meetings. I believe once you have the manuals, systems, and training, there's nobody in your company, not just your technicians, but anybody who should not be in a meeting once a week. And these meetings aren't like, oh, let's come to a meeting, eat a donut, and talk about stuff. It's directly focused on the work we're doing. It's focused on systems. It's a start time. There's an end time. So I preach about the 10 golden rules for meetings, which is something that I always talk about. There's a way to run right kind of meetings.
Okay.
The people who think they're so busy and can't come to a meeting, my dad used to say, those are the ones that need a meeting the most.
Yeah.
So well-run meetings. short and to the point. That's not how we always did it, though. We wouldn't have meetings until somebody did something wrong that pissed us off. And then we would have a beat it up session where we'd pull them in, go on for an hour or two and yell at them. And people in the room would looking like, they can't be talking about me. You must be talking about you, Matt, because I'm perfect.
Yeah.
So they were worthless meetings. They only made ourselves feel good. Well-run meetings is really critical. On a personal level, and to this day, I have a meeting with me. And the meeting with me is something that Ellen and I preach all the time, which is once a week. In my case, it's Sunday. I have a block of time, and I look at what I call my top 5, which is a part of planning power. There are 5 projects or habits that I'm looking to get in place. So what are those projects? Why is it that I want them? And where am I in that process of making them come to fruition?
Mm-hmm.
So planning power is working on the right thing at the right time, the right way. So it's 3 rights. Work on the right thing at the right time, the right way. And so I take my own medicine, and every week I look at that to make sure that, because I said, if this is what's going to move the needle in the right direction, then part of my week must be spent working on making that come.
Yeah. Tell me, Al, do you have...
Otherwise, you're out doing what we were talking about before. You're always fighting fires. You're never in firefighting mode, prevention mode.
Do you have so I do a similar thing on a Friday morning with a colleague of mine. We do it every week, and well, we have been until he selfishly went and had a baby. Since then I've been fending for myself.
Some people are so inconsiderate.
I know. Can you believe it? Scott, if you're listening, it's not on, mate. But anyway, we have the idea behind us putting this little program together between us is that we can sort of keep each other accountable. We find that you can go off and make all these dreams and aspirations and goals and whatever and do all this stuff, but at the end of the day, if you're not actually sharing those goals and sharing those motives with other people, then you're less likely to get them done because you're not accountable to anyone. Do you implement accountability into your program?
Yeah, well, I'm a pretty accountable person. When I first left my business, my wife used to laugh because my office is now 10 feet from my bedroom. So I closed the doors like I'm going to work, and it was really wild because I told you I was crazy. I was dressed up in my logo shirt sitting in my own office. So because I had to put habits in that made me feel like I was going to, because I had a vision of what I wanted to do. A lot of people cannot be that way. That's where groups like in America, we have Nexstar, we have trade association meetings, these things where you have to expose yourself, like going to a doctor, to other people is really helpful. Ellen and I just came back we have an annual meeting where we show each other our business plans. Some of them have, counted stuff together, but I'm accountable to Ellen every year. And for years and years, I'll give you a side note, I said I want to get to China, and I wanted to get to China since I was a kid. And finally, I said to myself, I am not going to this meeting one more year without being said that I went to China. And that's what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. I totally understand what you're talking about. Being accountable. I had one contractor I worked with many years ago, and I asked him, so Tim, what made the change for you? What made the final turn? And he said, when I had to be accountable to you, Al, because you were going to call me every week, I was finally able to look at my staff and have them accountable to me. Until I was willing to be accountable to you, I didn't feel I earned the right for them to be accountable to me.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. So, Al, tell me, are there any books you're reading at the moment that you recommend to the listeners? My book itself is 150 pages because when I worked with my editor, I said, I don't believe really good business books are any good if they can't tell the story in 100 to 150 pages. So one of the best books, people will always kind of laugh, but Who Moved My Cheese, I still think is one of the best. Yeah.
And people go, it's so short. I said, you don't understand the brilliance of making it short. It's easy to pad it with content and stuff that makes it confusing. But Who Moved My Cheese, I think, is an excellent book. I think Good to Great is an excellent book. Mm-hmm. Which I preach is one thing, is be careful where you gather too much information because it's kind of like creating a Frankenstein. Not everything will fit together, Matt. You know what I mean? So you need to really use your filter well as you read stuff and pull it together because, there's nothing wrong. The 4-hour work week, I read that, and it's a good catchy title. Have you heard of that one?
Oh, I love it. I love Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, and
I listen to his podcast regularly.
yeah, it is. He's got some great stuff, and so people will resonate, but other people will just go, I like working 40 hours, or I like working 60 hours, as long as they're fun.
Yeah.
60 hours. So there's a lot of stuff that's out there.
Oh, look, I think with books like 4 Hour Work Week, it's important to, or even books like the Bible. There's the things that come out of that book aren't necessarily always meant to be taken literally. It's either the metaphor behind it or the message that it's trying to deliver. I think very often, people take things too literally, and of course it doesn't make sense because they can't relate to it. But then if you sit back and sort of think about the message behind it, then it tends to make a little bit more sense.
Yes, and it was a great lesson years ago when I was in school. Was one of our teachers made us read the New York Times and the Daily News, and they're polar opposites. One is very left, liberal, and one is very right, conservative. And she said, you have to understand that news is written with a bias, and it's up to you to read both and understand, and then make a decision on your own.
Exactly.
So what you're speaking to is that as you read the book, you're still responsible about how does this fit into the pieces of what I'm trying to build.
Yeah, that's always my advice as well. If anyone asks me what's the best bit of advice you've ever been given, I always say, be careful who you listen to. So
yes, that's a great one. Yeah.
All right.
It gets to the Frankenstein.
We're getting close towards our time on this recording. There are a few more questions that I just want to ask you if you've got a bit longer. So what's in the future for you? What lies in the future?
Well, right now, the biggest thing for me is to get the book out and to get people to understand there's a better way of doing business.
Yep.
It's focused for contractors. And again, I did what I preached, which is with the help of my editor, we got it to 150 pages. I got 20 times this stuff.
Yeah.
But thankfully, she was able to make it so that, you can read it in a couple of hours. And then I am going to be doing webinars and seminars and things of that nature to help give a little more support, because you can only tell so much in the book.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to see I still have some one-to-one consulting that I do. I actually started consulting in Canada because there was a need and people wanted me to come up there. And I actually worked with a kitchen cabinet guy. I have never, I've worked with people who did kitchen cabinets, but, and his business, just like all contracting business, was easy, including manufacturing, to take our systems and make it fit him. And the Drain franchise is really the thing that myself and Ellen are so committed to.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Like how interchangeable those, once you've got that foundation built in relation to your systems and your processes, how interchangeable it is into, other verticals. I think very often what a lot of, trade business owners out there tend to forget is that at the end of the day, it's still a small business. And small businesses typically run with the same systems and processes. It's just a matter of applying the slight differences to those verticals. I mean, we noticed the same thing with the web development companies. That their product has really been initially built for trade-based organisations. However, now it's so well suited for other small businesses. It just seems to fit everything because those foundations have been set correctly. So I'm guessing that's exactly what you're saying with the systems.
It is true. And basically when I come into bigger companies, what should the managers do? And I go, right now, nothing. Because you're talking about how to build a pyramid from the top of the pyramid instead of having the big 7 blocks I'm speaking about at the bottom.
Yeah.
The better those 7 blocks are, the stronger your foundation. You can do anything and everything from there up. That's kind of it. That's really, and if you're a plumber, you'll understand the same thing, which is, somebody wants to build a master bathroom and they're up there showing you, but you're not going to start there. You're going to go downstairs and look at the water main and see what they have for a water heater and find out if they have the infrastructure to support what they want, this dream upstairs. And that's really what you have to be paying attention to.
Yeah. How can people reach out to you, Al?
The best way is my website, which is appleseedbusiness.com.
Okay, cool.
Spaces, no hyphens, appleseedbusiness.com. Or drop me an email. I'm always happy to respond. It's Al, A-L, @appleseedbusiness.com.
Okay.
That's my email address. As I like to do that, I'm out rolling around in different time zones, different places. But if you go to the website, I think you're going to learn a lot. There's a success gallery tab where I have clients like yourselves out there who talk about what the work has done for them. Because I really think it's important for you to hear from people like yourselves that there is a better way, and there is.
And I've noticed on the, we've mentioned a couple of times now, the 7-Power Contractor, which is your book. That's available through the website as well. So we'll definitely post some links to that in the show notes. So anyone, if you want to check out that book, you can just visit the website and then you will be able to either download or purchase it. Al, I think that pretty much wraps it up. The last question I ask all my guests is the question that brought you on this show. Who would you like to see next on the program?
Well, he just recently retired from speaking, but if you let me know, I wonder if he would be happy to at least just do a radio class with you. Is a fellow named Dan Holohan, what I had mentioned about, who originally held up the truth mirror and said to me, "Do you think it's normal?" And he's been such a profound influence both in my life and Ellen Rohr's life, because he's been that rock person. He's just funny as can be, a great storyteller. He and I worked, he was a heating manufacturer rep back then, and he and I, kind of grew up in the business together. But what makes him so great is his background is sociology, and he never worked a day in his life in that either. But he understands what makes people tick, and he taught me more about sales and marketing than pretty much anybody I could think. And what's great is I recognize how great it is. And what's great is nobody else did. So I got him all to myself.
Excellent.
But he knows so many things. So if Dan would be willing to spend a little time with you, and I think that would be great, because he's just not just hysterically funny about everything and a great storyteller. He just really can help your contractors understand, how people tick, how to serve people better. And from that, everything comes.
Okay. Well, I will be requesting an email invitation if that's okay. But I think for now that pretty much wraps up this episode. So I just want to say thank you very much for your time. And what time is it over there, actually?
It is 9:08. We're on Pacific time, because we're one of the goofy states in America that doesn't change their clocks.
Oh, okay.
So half the time we're Mountain Time, and half the time Pacific.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, we have a similar thing. We have a similar scenario here in Australia. We have daylight saving, but there's a couple of states that don't want to play that game, so they always don't change their clock, whereas the rest of the country does. So it's always a bit backwards. But anyway, we deal with it.
Yeah, and so now you know even more about me, Matt.
Yeah, there you go. Well, look, thank you very much, Al. On behalf of myself and the listeners, that was fantastic. I learned a lot. I'm sure they all did as well, and we will collaborate further on a series. I think maybe in relation to maybe how to create a career path or something else along those lines. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up this episode.
Happy to share it, and how to make family businesses run right, because that's something I'm very attached to and passionate about.
Fantastic. Okay, well, that's pretty much a wrap for this episode. So, folks, we will be speaking to you in the following episodes. And if you enjoyed that one, please leave us some comments in the show notes, or likewise, you can comment on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iTunes. So if you haven't already, head across to thesiteshed.com and register for our Toolbox Talks, where you'll be regularly sent great episodes just like this straight to your inbox, so you'll never miss one. If you want to join the community, you can head across to thesiteshed.com/members, where for a small monthly fee, you'll get access to regularly updated training material, as well as access to our forum, where you can mingle and collaborate with trade-based business owners just like you from all over the world. If you're enjoying this podcast, please head across to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. We greatly appreciate it, and it helps us spread the word and reach the masses. Likewise, if you know anyone that might benefit from the content we create, then please go ahead and share this with them.
You've been listening to Toolbox Talks by The Site Shed. For more great content just like this, head across to thesiteshed.com and join the amazing community of savvy trade-based business owners.